Hi, everybody. Welcome to We Gotta Talk. First episode that is going up that's been taped since the election results have come out. And I'm here to serve today. I'm here to help you feel great, no matter how you feel after the election. Look, if I could get personal for just a moment, this election season has brought forth all sorts of feelings. And me as an individual, not Sunny, the podcast host, or person, or like the person, the human. I have really, for the first time, toyed with the idea of sharing some really personal episodes, talking about how I feel, what I think went right and wrong in this election, using the depth of experience that I have in both the media field and just sort of a genuine sort of fan of following American politics, and sort of offer my analysis because, you know, who doesn't need another armchair analysis of what happened, politically speaking? But I'm going to hold off on that for now. I am of two minds about it. I think there's probably a lot of people who feel the way I do, and it could be a cool opportunity to call forth a new audience and really engage in meaningful conversations. But the other part of me, it's just not the right moment. Feels very vulnerable to get on a public platform and get overly, I don't know, opinionated when it comes to politics. And frankly, most of the time it's a losing bet. It ends in people saying horrible things online. And I can handle that usually, but the stress of daily life added to the expectation that I often face on social media, which is people wanting me to mirror their exact thoughts all the time, can become a little stressful. So all of that to say, that stuff is on hold. I don't know where we're going with that, but I don't want you to think that I abandon this topic at such an important time in our country's history. The whole idea of this platform, Real Talk, Big Topics. I have always dove into really meaningful and complicated things here. And I promise you, I'm not running away from this. I'm just trying to come at it from more of an objective angle and an angle of service, at least for the time being. So we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, speaking of an angle of service, I have a guest on the podcast today who's helping us to process this election. And I'm not saying that as if you're disappointed or over, like wherever you fall, you're really happy with the results of the election. If you're really disappointed, if you don't know where you stand, today's guest is here to offer us some really just great practical advice on really processing any type of difficult conversation, whether it's politically centered or emotionally centered, or even something in your relationships. Amanda Baudier is a holistic executive coach and spiritual mentor. She works with entrepreneurs to, I guess you could say, achieve the ultimate work-life balance, to scale their business, to help them succeed on paper, but also help them to feel like they're coming home to a balanced spiritual life as well. She's worked with Sakara Life, Melissa Wood Health, Full Plate, Full Cup. She has worked with entrepreneurs and companies that you have certainly heard of and used their products before, big time groups. And we're tapping into Amanda today, not necessarily for her advice on launching a really successful business, although we could probably put that in the hopper if that's something you want to hear from her about down the line. Today, we're more focused on processing big emotions as it relates to the election. This election has put us in a really precarious position of having to interact as humans, coworkers, friends, relatives, in a time where a lot of people have really extreme or extremely opposed set of beliefs. So Amanda is talking with me today on managing yourself in this moment, whether you are finding yourself having to tamp down the extreme joy you feel in this election in front of friends who maybe aren't so happy, or whether you're on the other side of things and feeling disappointed. Probably you are friends with or know someone who thinks differently than you. So I thought it'd be cool to talk with her about things like showing up in respectful conversation with people we disagree with, how exactly to do that, some ways you can word things to engage respectfully with people you might disagree with. Is really a right and a wrong? We talk about your nervous system in this time, and that's everything from different and specific types of meditation to breathing exercises, and everything as it relates to self-regulation in this really extreme era. I say this in the episode jokingly, but it is true. These days, nuance doesn't sell. Everybody's going online to feel validated or to live in their echo chamber and feel that virtual pat on the back that, hey, I did the right thing. It's more about, in my opinion, or can be more, feel more about virtue signaling and showing up as this sort of avatar of the perfect set of beliefs than showing up as your whole, likely imperfect self. So Amanda's tips sort of help us walk that fine line of being true to who you are, believing what you believe, and holding strong in that. As I always say on this platform, no one is here to change your mind, but rather to help you exist in a world that probably isn't just like you. And isn't that an awesome thing? We don't need to be all carbon copies of each other walking around in the real world. Anyhow, this conversation is full of both practical tips and just a really great venting and I don't know what to call it. Not a venting session, but like a chat, with the best friend, just sort of re-regulating in this crazy time in American politics. Amanda, it was such a joy to talk with. You'll hear her talk all about her website and her business sort of at the end, but I'll put all of her links in show notes. You can check out everything that she mentions. I will link it right there for you. And I hope this conversation is of service to you and that you find just as much help and solace and hope in it that I did. Amanda really is just a cool person, and I enjoyed talking with her. So enjoy this conversation with Amanda Baudier. Okay, Amanda Baudier, welcome to We Gotta Talk. Thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm so happy to be here, Sunny.
It's nice to just have some space to talk long format with things that you and I have talked both on Instagram about or on calls about. And I'm excited to unlock your magic to my audience because we're in a time right now. We introed you already. You're a holistic executive coach, a spiritual mentor, and the worlds you play in are, I mean, as esoteric as they can be, but also as practical as they need to be, right?
Yeah.
Because we're going to a spiritual coach, presumably, to put into action some of these really great teachings. So I wanted to start the conversation with processing the election, which you just sent a really interesting newsletter about. And if I could just bring everybody up to speed, and guys, I will include a link to Amanda's great newsletter in show notes. But basically, what you said was kind of an offshoot of what I've been trying to do on my channel as well, which is acknowledging that there are a group of people who are ready and want to move past division. And there's also the reality that some people might not want to do that. I've gotten some flack for being a little too kumbaya. So I
Mhm.
wanted you to cut to the heart of really what that newsletter said, because this lesson I feel is vital for people right now.
Yeah. So the context that I come from is if I'm speaking to you and you are listening to me for more than 3 seconds, you want to be the best human that you can be, right? That's my assumption. My assumption is that you're not there necessarily for the hottest take or the takedown, but you're actually like, no, like I want to be a good
Mm.
person, right? So if that's the case, this advice will hopefully resonate. Um, we do not need to ignore our preferences. We do not need to put aside our strong disagreements to see someone as a human being
Mm.
who also gets to exist in common spaces with us. And that is honestly, you could stop right there and that would be enough, right? Now, you get to decide, hey, is this somebody that I'm going to be cordial but sort of
Mm.
distanced from because either I strongly disagree with them or I am not at a level of nervous system
Mhm.
regulation to engage from a mature place. Because the truth is, sometimes we are super activated and pissed and we're in a state of
Mhm.
judgment. So we need to be aware of where we're coming from. Because look, I have political beliefs, I have
Mhm.
preferences, but I can filter them through a lens of, hey, is this the type of human I want to be?
I cannot put it any better. I think I'm trying to figure out how I worded it. I think the day after the election I did a post about you may love the result, you may hate the result. And I will acknowledge here that my audience, when I put these little Q&As out, seems to be split pretty down the middle, which is something that I'm actually pretty
Yeah.
proud of. Um, but I said something like we all have to continue to exist under the same umbrella, or which was to me a simple fact, right? I didn't realize that it could be provocative in any way. I myself have been disappointed and am disappointed in certain things in the way that this election turned out as well. I'm not immune from that. But I think in my attempt to find the commonalities too quickly, some people were offended. And I was like, oh, okay, wait.
Yeah.
And it so help me understand that, because this is sort of like an analog of a lot of relationships right now, right?
Mhm.
People are deciding what to do with people that didn't vote like them. So break that down for us.
Yeah, I think that there is a space that comes before let's put our differences aside. And because that is actually really impossible for some people to do, and really impossible for some people to do in a short amount of time,
Hmm.
also, right?
Hmm.
So rather than thinking, hey, let's put our differences aside, it's more like, can I slow down my reaction and really filter it through a lens of almost like those questions? Is this true? Is this helpful? Is this
Hmm.
necessary? Right? I think we've all heard like that questioning, that line of questioning. And for me, it's like, well, is this somebody that I need to engage with in this way? First
Hmm.
of all, because the answer might be no, right? Is this just somebody I follow on social media? Is this somebody who my kid goes to school with their kid? And, we don't need to be in engagement with everybody on every topic.
Hmm.
Um, so that's first of all, like we don't
Important.
need to
It's important
engage.
to remember.
Right. The other thing is, can I sit with my discomfort for what this person believes or what this person did, and really question how my response can also come from a space of compassion and not become the attacker, become the thing that we are judging in someone else, right? Can we
Hmm.
not bring
Hmm.
violence into our engagement with people, even while we hate what they did or we hate what they
Right.
believe in or we strongly disagree? It's not about, and I also say, that there's that quote going around of like, well, can we can disagree and still be friends? And some people are like, absolutely not, because blah blah blah. And if that is the case, make that choice. You do not have to be friends with everybody. You
Mm.
do not have to keep everybody in your life, but it should be done on a case by case basis, right? There are people who and I share this in my newsletter, but I have a Republican dad and a Democrat mom as long as I've been alive. So I have a lot of experience of being like, okay, well, I know these two people. I know the good, I know the bad on
Right.
both sides of them. And then I also know that their political preferences. And there are, for some people, right? If you, I don't know if everyone's watching this on video, but I'm a white woman, right? I'm a white lady, upper middle class, American, born and raised. So my lived experience is different than some other people who really might feel vilified, othered, discounted, et cetera, by somebody's vote. And if that's where you're feeling, it's okay to just be like, hey, I'm putting up a boundary.
Right.
I cannot engage with this person productively.
Right. I agree. I guess my only follow-up question for that, because I think in theory that's exactly what we should be doing. But I know for a fact that regardless of all the identity descriptions you just gave, you are also a human who has
Yeah.
likely struggled with something or feels passionately and has felt strongly for a particular reason. But you are also not out there expecting, like, there's a level of strength that I think we all need to carry in our own selves, a sort of explanation, for lack of a better word, in our beliefs without the need to lead with that. I think we could all come to the table. I mean, being a woman in America, I mean, is
Yeah.
that's pretty sucky. So, but I don't
Yeah.
feel that everybody leads with their disadvantage. I do think some people do, and they're looking to pick a fight sometimes. Well, I this and my identity group that. And listen, I come from an immigrant family. I have seen the struggles of what it's like to adapt to American culture. Only two generations back, I
Right.
also have a very privileged life that my family and I have worked really hard to
Right.
achieve. And I guess I get caught in the crossfire of the two different types of people that appear on social media. Those who lead with the struggles and immediately want someone that they're watching on their screen to represent their beliefs. And then the people who seem to lead with more of I'm going to tuck those struggles away and use them to inform my position, but kind of be calmer on the surface. It's like more reactive, more calm, which is kind of where you fall into like the
Yeah.
calmer. So how
Yeah.
do you reconcile those two types of sort of people in dialogue?
Yeah. I mean, my take on this is that not everybody is ready to engage in a calm way, and
Mhm.
it's not because they're less intelligent, it's not because their views are less informed, it's not because they're bad people, and that is on all sides of the political spectrum,
Mhm.
right? Because there's more
Absolutely.
than just two sides.
Absolutely.
But and I share this in the newsletter, but when Trump was elected in 2016, I was overcome with stress such that it caused a lot of digestive issues. Like I was like not digesting food, I couldn't sleep. I was very overcome by stress. I was very worried about what this meant for the country, for the future, et cetera, et cetera. Um, that was 8 years ago. I've
Mhm.
been doing pretty much nonstop, spiritual work. I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner, right? So I have a lot of nervous system capacity, and I also have a strong
Mm.
commitment and desire to not. One of my teachers, Tara Brock, will say, like, don't make somebody else the bad other, right? As soon as
Ooh.
you other somebody and make them the bad other, right? You are then sitting in judgment of them. Now, this is not something that we that I don't think any humans get right every single time. We all have biases. We all have judgments. We all see someone post something and eye roll, sometimes for very good reason, and sometimes
Mhm.
only because it rubs against our own worldview.
Right.
But it takes a lot of strength to not act on those instincts. And so my counsel to people is like, just slow down. We
Right.
cannot expect our we cannot expect ourselves to be saints. We can't expect to walk into a room and give a hug to somebody that we feel is in opposition to everything we believe in.
Right.
But
Right.
can we just time out? Can we just slow down? Can we breathe into our own discomfort and get curious about our own discomfort? What about this person or this worldview or this vote? What is it invoking in me?
Mm.
And not always, and like in the world of social media, to say, oh, you don't have to comment on everything that pisses you off. You don't have to
Right.
immediately unfollow. It's like mute, right?
Right.
If that's been your friend for 20 years, maybe just mute them until your nervous system goes down because the week or 2 weeks or month after the election, yeah, shit's heightened, right? We're
Right.
heightened.
Right.
Pause, right? Really contemplate and take people on a case by case basis because there
Mhm.
might be some conservatives or liberals or leftists or whomever that have made it clear that you're like, "Oh, I do not agree with them." And there might be other people, look, like, my take is there's a book by Sabine Selassie. Oh gosh, I'm gonna think of the title, but basically she's a Black immigrant Ethiopian woman who lives in the South, and she's a mindfulness teacher. And she talks about imagining if she had grown up in the context with the skin color, with the parents and the upbringing of people whose views are diametrically opposed to her. And she's like, yeah, I could see
Mhm.
why they would think that way. I could
Mhm.
see why they would vote that way. Now, guess what? This is a woman who is a minority, othered, very, very has every right to be like, I hate them. They hate me. And so I hate them back. But she's choosing to see it through a lens of, okay, I can understand, given their context, how they ended up seeing the world in this way. And
Right.
I see it in that way. And that is, I mean, that takes immense maturity.
Sure.
But if we want to be on the spiritual path and do the work, this is the work. The work isn't let me go sit and meditate. The work is like
Right.
this.
Yeah, I always say it's like a gentle triggering. I mean, I make a
Mm.
practice of, and I had to slow down a little bit too after the election, but I make a practice of triggering myself. I my path is unique, having worked in journalism and having had the exercise of oppressing, holding down my own beliefs in the name of
Yeah.
professionalism. And little did I know that the skill set I was using every day as I was sitting in a newsroom would be the exact skill set that I would need to exist in the social media world and in the new
Yeah.
media field that I'm in right now. And I
Yeah.
guess I sometimes forget that I've been at this for 20 years. I have been a very well informed and educated person in, whatever the course of my career, and I have had strong beliefs, but I have had to keep them in check. But I guess if I forget that sometimes. And if I could say this, like, this is not a judgment on you or anyone else who viscerally reacted to the 2016 election. I didn't like it either, but I was like, come on, guys, like, get over it a little bit. And that's not to be mean to you, but I never
No.
understood. I I believe the democratic system renews itself every 4. It's a snake shedding its skin. It's set up for this purpose, right?
Mhm.
And so I guess maybe because I had been doing it so long, I this is when I started to get a little disillusioned with sort of the culture of coddling, because I'm like, it's one thing to be disappointed, but I saw it destroy people's relationships. And that to me, it
Yeah.
was a red line. And I thought, okay, you need to like get over it a little bit more. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm
Well,
so
yeah.
disappointed, but I also understand that this is my set of beliefs, like you just said, that I have come to over a protracted length of time, having had to be that person. And
Yeah.
so I need to give a little grace. I understand that, but I just hate to see the immediate reaction, because to me, in my very Libra desire for balance sense of self, if you don't react to that, if you don't sort of counteract that stimuli that's pulling you in opposing directions, our world is headed down a terrible path. This world is
Yeah.
calling on us now to pause, do what you said.
Mhm.
And I'm
Yeah.
just not seeing the desire for people. I'm seeing more of a desire to find their camp and entrench themselves.
Yeah. And I think the reason why I have the compassion that I do is because, I mean, we've all heard this saying, maybe read the book The Body Keeps the Score.
Mhm.
My reaction was so it was my body.
Yeah.
I knew that my stress response was as strong as it was because
Right.
of what was going on with my digestive system. It was not I think my mental faculties and my desire to be, a sane, relatively reasonable spiritual person kind of made it go internalized. And
Right.
so I know that people, and I've experienced it, right? I do group coaching, I do one-on-one coaching, I hold a lot of space, and people are freaking out. I am not. I'm not in that place right now, but I
Right.
have been in the past, and I know that it is not always a choice. It is
Yeah.
sometimes first like a very visceral physical reaction,
Right.
and then we need to decide, how am I going to behave in response to this?
Right.
And, this is not to say there is not a place for being outspoken about your views. It's not to say that we shouldn't protest, that we shouldn't debate, that we shouldn't do all these things. But there is a meanness and a
Mm.
personal, like making it very personal, um, that is unnecessary and actually quite it's counterproductive to what you believe. And I see this because I don't unfollow people unless I feel that someone is hateful, etc. I have relatives that are far, far right and far, far left. And so I watch and I notice on every part of the political spectrum, there's the gotcha and the
Mm.
meanness
Mhm.
and the assumptions,
Right.
and the, "Oh, if you believe this, you also." What's kind of interesting that I'm seeing happen now is, like, you can't assume because somebody believes one thing that they believe another thing anymore. People got
No.
real niche, right? And you're like, "Oh,
Oh,
you voted
yes.
for them, but you like this." So I think that's actually kind of good, that you can't just pigeonhole, "Well, a red person does this, this, and this, and a blue person does that, that, and that," right?
Right.
It's kinda good to keep us on our toes a little bit because we're not one dimensional.
No, we're not. And listen, I want to caveat what I say. I feel like that came across like
No, 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 no,
judgmental.
no.
It's not at all. I understand
No.
people have body visceral reactions to things,
Yeah.
but I was just, I carry a lot of the beliefs from my own very tough parents who I don't know. There's a generational divide between, there's a lack of coddling, I think, right?
Mhm.
The greatest generation, our grandparents, I don't know what that would be, baby boomers, I guess would
Yeah.
be my parents. There is not a lack of empathy. They are kind, emotionally intelligent people, but I have two very strong polarities that exist within me, one that wants to hold everyone who's crying, and the other one who's like, buck up, buttercup. And I just depending on my own, like where I am in my cycle, and like one of them wins out. And
Yeah.
sometimes I get on social media and I'm attempting, as you are, maybe in a more current events focused way, but to create dialogues with people for
Yeah.
this express purpose, right? The end goal is to create more informed and compassionate people, or
Yeah.
news watchers in my case. But it's hard because everybody wants you to believe what they believe.
Totally.
And I'm like, listen, I mean, it's tempting to get on there and soapbox my own beliefs, but it's really difficult to do, I think, what you're doing too, which is create a space for people of many beliefs to exist and feel not judged. Because I do think we come together only when we don't feel judged. In fact, I think you could say, in a lot of ways, this political season and this election has showed us that there is such a disdain for feeling judged. The Democrats have lost power in the House and Senate. They lost their presidential. I think a feeling of being judged or being garbage, uh,
Mhm,
that moral superiority, that virtue signaling has lost. It's lost people now. So there's even more of a calling to be like,
mhm.
okay, like let's not make people feel bad. Let's try to rein it in. Do you foresee a softer world as far as politics are concerned and as far as interactions with people? Like, do you see a more collective coming together, or do you think we'll be in a period where we need to decamp to our sides for now and then return?
Oh gosh. I mean, I'll say what I hope first.
Okay.
I was actually talking to someone who's doing my hair about this yesterday. We as Americans do a really good job of being loving and caring to one another on a very micro level, right? We will give
Mm,
out turkeys to people in our community. We will do canned food drives and gifting trees and GoFundMe's when someone has a fire or a car accident. We will do beautiful things for one another. I saw something recently about in Asheville, North Carolina, after the devastation that they experienced there, all of a sudden people who had hated each other because one had Harris Wall's sign and one had a Trump sign.
mm,
All of a sudden, it was like, who cares? We're humans. We're all suffering. You've got Wi Fi. I've got clean water. Let's be not just neighbors. Let's be family. Let's like
mhm,
really care for one another.
mhm.
And unfortunately, what I think is going to have to happen is things do a little bit need to get worse before they're going to get better for
Right.
us to realize that the struggle that people are experiencing in America, is actually quite party agnostic.
Mm,
It really is party agnostic. There are some very fundamental, I would say, ideological things that are, this means I'm a conservative, that means I'm a liberal, right? There's a handful of those things. But a lot of the things that are really potent and really broken are party agnostic, right? They're happening to, my dad was the son of a coal miner in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, like very, one of those towns that after the coal mining industry left, it's devastation, it's meth, it's
mhm,
drug addiction, it's poverty, but it's like all white people in poverty, and there's no jobs and people are angry, right? And so many times in situations like that, they go red, right? But then if you look at like an inner city where it's a similar story, but it's people of a different race, people of a different ethnicity, maybe more, instead of 2 generations ago, they came this generation.
mhm.
Um, and what I think needs to happen, and I'm giving away my political beliefs a little bit here, but I really do think that the American people are going to realize perhaps that it doesn't matter whether the leaders are red or blue. It really matters, what are they actually going to do for us?
Right.
Because income disparity and a lot of things that are happening in this country, it's hurting everyone. It's not, I wish I could say, "Oh, no, I firmly believe that if the Democrats won, things would get better," or I firmly believe, I don't actually believe that
Right.
either party and people are once again welcome to disagree with me, but I think we need to get back to a little bit more of how do we care for one another as if you were my neighbor who needs a turkey for
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, as if you were the single mom on the corner who can't, who on my street who can't afford to send their kids to camp. So I'm going to help you carpool or whatever. Let's just, we're all
Right.
like, the struggle is not blue and red. It's not.
I know. I hope you're right that it's not. And I'm in Florida. I mean, it's not a swing state anymore, I guess. But yeah, my roots are in Pittsburgh, Midwest, Union. My whole family's. I mean, like I've seen every argument for both sides of the political
Mhm.
party over the course of my existence, and and having conversations with my family and having conversations with friends down here. I mean, every one of those people is a really good person, and yet they are all so different
Yeah.
identity. Like if you were to ask them, okay, what is your political affiliation? Or I mean, and I'm thinking to myself, like keeping track of like the issues, and they're pretty much all the same issues that they care about. They pretty much agree on everything as far as,
Yeah.
opportunity and the ability to provide for their families and, being safe or whatever, healthy, make sure our food is healthy, like everything. I'm like, I mean,
Yeah.
I know the system is broken and it can feel overwhelming, but I do think you're onto something with the micro acts of compassion, because that is probably the only thing. That is the only
Yeah.
thing ultimately that we're in
Yeah.
control of as people.
Yeah. And I also, whether we're talking politics, business, spirituality, I think there is it becomes very dangerous for us to idolize
Mm,
individuals, charismatic
yeah.
individuals, whether they're our spiritual teacher, our political candidate.
Mm, mhm.
And when I see people of either party really, and even third parties, right,
Uh-huh.
really believing that the person that they are voting for is the answer, it's them, right? And in my world, I saw this a lot with, or seeing this a lot with RFK, right? And I don't have a problem with people agreeing with him, his stances, et cetera. But I think we really have to be careful how much of our faith we put in any
Yeah.
single one individual. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you say. Show me what you do through your actions. Let's see that before I am going to live and die, breathe and cheer for you. Nobody has smitten me in that way, you know?
No, no, and it reminds me of a conversation that I frequently have when I'm talking professionally on panels. It's typically on media literacy or media consumption. And I was saying this years ago when I left TV proper, probably 8 years ago now, and I say it to this day. Uh, the truth is somewhere in the middle. So if you're looking to be well informed and you only watch Fox News, you need to turn on CNN. And if you only watch
Yeah.
CNN, you got to turn on Fox. And like it's just like what you're saying with individuals. You have to want to be out of your comfort zone enough to challenge, whether it be that person's belief that you're placing so
Mhm.
much faith in, or
Yeah.
the party that you believe so much in. You are responsible for
Mhm.
challenging your beliefs. You are responsible for evolution, and you
Yeah.
are responsible for showing up in the world as an evolved enough human that you're not starting fights with people on social media, and you're not starting
Yeah.
fights with your family members. Like, just don't be that guy. And it's an inside job, and I think people are uncomfortable. They want to remain in their zone of comfort when it comes to whatever set
Yeah.
of beliefs, political or geopolitical, that they lack the desire to do that, and as a result they just begin to be just to
Spiral.
what, yeah, it's like a one-dimensional existence. Yes, they spiral.
Yeah.
It's like they're
Yeah.
ricocheting off the walls. So how do you mentioned several times, growing up in a mixed political household. I've talked a ton about this
Mhm.
myself. What tips do you have for conversations in mixed political spaces, especially in this short-term period after the election?
Yeah, I mean, and this goes for pretty much any type of heated conversation, is you really need to be first aware of yourself. What
Mm,
is happening in my body? What is happening in my system? Am I in a space where I can engage on the, forget the other person, right? First start with you. Can I engage in this
mm,
in a way that I'm going to be proud of, that I'm going to stand
mhm,
by,
mhm.
that is going to feel okay for me? And this is not about like, oh, I have to be in a safe space, right? This is really like, am I about to pop off right now? Am I about to say something I'm going to regret? Am I going to make this personal? If so, know what a great phrase is for pausing or ending a conversation. Hey,
Yeah.
this is a topic that I cannot engage with you with. I'm going to get too heated. It's not going to go someplace productive. Let's just park it, right?
Hmm.
Really knowing when to end a conversation and knowing when you're in a space to say, you know what? I can talk about this and I can hear you and I can disagree and I can debate. But if you're coming from a place of your nervous system is in attack mode and your frontal lobe is
Mhm.
offline, which happens to all of us. We
Right.
all have certain issues. Like, moms, when someone says something about their kid, you're like, right? Like we
Oh,
all,
don't even
right?
yeah.
Right? It might not be politics for you. It might be something else. It might be religion. It might be whatever. You're obsessed with Taylor Swift. And if someone
Right.
talks about her, we all have our thing. So you really need to be aware of, okay, how do I feel in my body? How do I feel in my system? Am I going to show up how
Mm.
I need to show up in this conversation? Because there is, I mean, everyone knows that vibes are real, right? Nervous system
Yes.
resonance.
Mhm.
One of the things that I'm so grateful for having a Democrat mom and a Republican dad, it has enabled me to
Mhm.
be really good at de-escalation.
Yes.
I can talk
Yes.
to people about something like this is
Uh,
a horrible phrase to use in this day and age, but when I worked at Tao, I worked in hospitality and they used to call me the hostage negotiator
oh my god.
because someone would call so pissed, like
Yeah.
about to, break somebody's kneecaps, and I could talk them down off the ledge because if you meet fire with fire, guess
Yeah.
what? Nothing good comes of it. But
Mm.
if you can say, look, I want to hear what you have to say. I want to preface with my belief is different than yours, but I really want to understand. Someone's going to be like, okay, they're coming to
Mhm.
me respectfully. Maybe I
Yep.
can talk about it versus how could you possibly vote for that person? What do
Mhm.
you think they're going to say? Do
Right.
you think they're going to engage with you? No, they're going to say you're an asshole, so I'm going to be an asshole back. That's just the way humans engage with one another.
Yeah, I mean, so in that vein, which I mean, I feel like there are so many similarities between us. I love this conversation on so many levels. I'm like the natural conflict
Mhm.
person in in every space. So like, I like to feel like I'm kind of good at it too. But what should the end goal be? Recognizing that these conversations that are inevitably going to happen post election or at any point in our lives, if it's not to agree completely with someone, and I always say this on my platform, come to the page. I'm not trying to I don't care if you change your mind, really. I mean,
Yeah.
unless you're trying to murder people, whatever. I'm not trying to change your mind. No one's trying to like convert you. I'm just trying to get you in a spot of hearing something else. Anyway, so if the goal is not to pull them over to the right side, which we know is impossible, what should the end goal of some of these conversations and interactions be?
Yeah. So I come to this completely from a spiritual standpoint, which is if we are to live with each other, not just coexist, but actually live with each other in a way that we can be the most proud of,
Mm.
we need to see the spaces where we have shared humanity and we need to magnify the love and care that we're able to give to that person because of where we see their humanity, right? You might think someone is you might vilify them for their political beliefs, but can you see the way that they, I don't know, take care of their own children? Do they give back in the
Mm.
community? Are there things about that person that you can see down to their fundamental goodness? I believe at the core of every human is fundamental goodness, right?
Mhm.
We want to, and I believe this is true for everyone, we're not out to get people. We do have strong urges towards self protection and self preservation. And so sometimes that can look like hurting or, trying to get other people. But at
Mhm.
the end of the day, I now live in the mountains north of New York City. Right. And so when I was in Brooklyn, I was in a very, very blue bubble. And I would often think, okay, we liberals, right? Just would describe ourselves. We're the open ones. We're the accepting ones. We're the inclusive ones. Well, guess what? Then you go up to some place where that's more red or more rural, more country, and you turn your nose up and you're judgmental. And that is also, it's not inclusive.
Mm-mm.
And so it was really important for me to check my own privilege, check my own biases, and look for, well, look at the way that we all just want our families to be happy. Look at the way that we have
Mhm.
devotion to our faith, whatever that might be,
Right.
right? Look at the way that we care about the environment of our communities, the way that we give back in whatever ways we do, right? How can we find those shared spaces? And then how can we magnify them? And I think most
Mhm.
people are familiar with loving kindness or meta meditation, but I really recommend. I led a meta meditation, and I wish I could. I wish I could find it. It disappeared in the ether, but in the early aftermath of October 7th, I led a meta meditation, which is like, guys, we don't need to agree, Like there is
Right.
I wouldn't even ask people to agree on certain issues, but can we love humans? Can we love other humans? The goal of any, true spiritual practice is to love all beings everywhere without exception and want the highest good for all beings everywhere without exception. And the truth is, like, ain't nobody is perfect at that, right? That is,
Mhm.
you're a Buddha, you're a God, whatever. But can you challenge yourself to say, instead of F them, they're this, they're that, it's like, ooh, how do I love this person?
Right, right. It's interesting, Amanda, because these times have called us all into such separate camps when it comes to so many issues. And I have found that for me, it's a continuous reminder of what you just said to tell myself, no matter what the world tells me, people are inherently good.
Mhm.
I will find the good. I will reach across the aisle or the issue. I will make a practice of that. Of course, I had to learn some boundaries because I'm
Yeah.
in a constant state of seeking. So my issue is just shutting it down once in a while. But it really does have to be a deliberate choice, I feel like, because it's really hard. It's not a comfortable space to exist in. I mean, try running like an opinion or like a news or an account like you or I do for a day, and you will immediately see both the best and the worst,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
online humanity.
Yeah. And sometimes trying to be, and I don't consider myself a centrist politically. I consider myself spiritual, and that means that I challenge any place where I sit
Mm,
in judgment of some of other people. And that's about their beliefs, that's about anything. Not perfectly, but it is who I aspire to be, and it's what
mm.
I believe I need to communicate, and it's how I try to communicate. But but trying to even that pisses everybody off. It pisses
Crazy.
everybody, just wants you to, say they're right. Tell me
Yeah,
I'm right. Tell
I
me they're
know.
wrong.
I'm like, "Go talk to your mom or something."
Yeah,
I don't know
totally.
what childhood issue like,
Well,
I am not here to tell you, like,
there are plenty of accounts. If you wanna go down the rabbit hole of I'm right and they're wrong, the
uh,
internet will provide that for you. I won't be
yes.
on that algorithm, but
No, I
it
won't be.
exists.
Unfortunately, the algorithm really rewards those people,
Oh,
and this
yeah.
has been I've been screaming from the rooftops. This is why part of my mission in media literacy or in whatever you call it, compassionate consumption, whatever, has been I have been but there's nothing sexy about nuance. Unfortunately,
No,
people
no.
really draw to and I always say there's two groups of people in the world, and I think that everyone falls into either a moderator or an activator. Your activators are your Martin Luther King Jr.'s, your, Mahatma Gandhi's, your people who call other people to rise and
Mhm.
work toward a common good goal. And then you have, I think, what I know I occupy, which is the person who, and not that I don't call people forth, I think with good intention to do good things, but who would rather use their superpower to like see the humanity and try to people call it both sidesism, which I kind of hate that phrase, but because there is a need to sort of exist together. But I fall into that category. It's more of a moderator and hey, let's be humane and sit down rather than go through all of the ways that we're different. Do you feel that you fall into one of those categories?
I was gonna say I try to be a no sides a no
Hmm.
sideser. And what I mean by that is, where do we exist outside of the sides, right? Like,
Hmm.
there is a plane where I have this side and you have that side. And that
Hmm.
plane exists, and I do
Hmm.
not negate it, and there's a time and place for it. But there is also a plane where we there is no difference between our sides. We have a shared humanity. And I could engage in very strongly one-siding or both-siding. I am capable of engaging on that plane, but what I'm called to do is say, "Yeah, let's acknowledge that there are
Mm.
different sides, and then let's figure out how to."
I love
And we don't
this.
have to like each other. We don't have to agree, but how do we love each other? How do we insist that my humanity doesn't have to negate someone else's?
That's
I
so
want
well. Oh my gosh, that's so well put.
I want everyone who voted for Trump to have a beautiful, glorious, fulfilling, abundant existence. And I mean that with every core of my being. Why
Mm,
would I hate them?
mm,
I think everyone deserve, my where my political beliefs go is that I do think that, we're not doing enough for we're not doing it. There is an energy in our country of struggle, right?
Mm,
And the reason why I believe that everyone is at each other's throats so much, and not that it doesn't exist in other countries, but life is hard here, right? We don't
mhm.
college is expensive. There's no maternity leave. There's all of these things that we don't have. And so when we get a little bit of
Right.
abundance or wealth or power, we have to grasp onto it
Mhm.
because sharing has been very problematic in our country. It's very much a dog eat dog. And like, I'm not an anti-capitalist. I'm not, but it's like I understand why people are so fearful because
Right.
they're suffering and they're struggling. And so for me, when I see someone violently professing a belief for a
Mm,
political party or against a political party, I know it's because there is fear and there is
yeah.
struggle in their life. And they think they found a solution through a blue candidate or a red candidate. And so I don't want to see, well, what was your choice? I want to see, what is your struggle?
Right.
What's put you in this space where there's fear? And like I said, going to my dad's hometown and seeing a bunch of drug zombies wandering the street where there used to be good old immigrant, like, American dream, working in a
Yeah.
whatever. I understand why it
Yeah.
exists. And so how can I sit in judgment of someone who literally is just trying to make a better life?
Absolutely. I think your impulse is so spot on, just wanting to understand and holding space for that. I wanna wrap things up with 2 questions.
Yeah.
The first is, what has your work taught you, if anything, about whether or not there is a right and a wrong? This postmodern sort of world that we're living in has all of us believing, okay, well, you do you, and just I don't care what you do as long as it's like not hurting me. And then you have a whole new camp of people who are like, no, there are objective truths. There are
Yeah.
objective wrong. So what has your work taught you about whether or not there is in fact ever in any case a right and a wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a fundamental, and like I was raised Catholic. I no longer am practicing any particular religion, but when you get to the root of any of the big religions, right, there is, whether it's the golden rule, right? There people have shared that meme around on Instagram how there's like every religion from Islam to Judaism to Christianity to Buddhism, right? There is some version of a golden rule.
Hmm.
And I think we can really all come back to, like, is this in service of love and life and humanity, or is this against
Hmm.
love and life and humanity? And I don't mean love and light, right? It's all love and light, live and let live, because sometimes the choice that is in service of the highest good
Hmm.
actually does harm some people or does negate some people's view. But that's not heckling people on the internet, right?
Hmm.
Heckling people on the internet is not in service of anyone's good.
Hmm.
And so I think if we got back to a little bit more of like, yeah, like, I use the example of giving a turkey to a neighbor because we all see that as this glorious choice. But then if that became some government program, right, we'd be like, right. But we need to understand that thing that's happening in our brain, the labeling, the othering, right? Oh, that's not me. That's them, and so it's
Mhm.
bad,
Mm.
right? So
Mhm.
it's always coming back to that really like fundamental thought of like, is this in service of the highest possible good that I can do in the world?
That's a really great way to measure, and it takes away like, the judgment call of the right or wrong.
Yeah.
I like that. It takes away, yeah, like, the black and white feeling,
I
but still
wish, yeah, I
well,
wish
yeah,
honestly that I could say, here's the good people, here's the bad
right.
people. It would make life so much easier. It would really make life so much easier. But the truth is that doesn't exist. And so I think our biggest tool in this world is discernment.
Right.
Can I see that, like I always say, like I might vote for somebody. That doesn't mean I agree with everything they say.
Mhm.
When we fall into something is 100% black or something is 100% white, we're probably incorrect.
Right. Yep.
We're probably avoiding looking at the spectrum that actually exists because it's easier to say, no, I 100% love this person.
Right.
I
I don't trust
100%
I don't
follow this.
trust anybody who 100% loves anyone, even their
Yeah.
spouse. I'm like,
Right.
"Well,"
You're like,
like, I mean, like, it's
yeah,
one thing to, like, fully dedicated to I mean, like,
unconditional, but
there's
not.
Yes, unconditional love and respect, but, like, no one is ever right. Yes, the
Right?
extremism of that.
Messianism, making somebody
Yes.
into a messiah, like, there that doesn't, like, maybe they'll come back one day. No, I'm just kidding. But no, it doesn't, it doesn't exist, and we put ourselves in a really
Right.
dangerous place when we give our power away to that degree.
I love that. Yeah, God created whatever you believe, God created us as discerning creatures and gave
Yeah,
us the ability to sense our atmosphere and our environment and make judgment calls as related. So I
yeah,
do think that weaves nicely into any sort of spiritual belief too. Like God did
yeah,
not create us to be, robots. We
yeah,
are given tools of discernment. We are given the ability to make decisions and
yeah,
discern what's right and wrong for the
yeah.
moment. So
And I
okay,
mean, my son goes to Waldorf school, and they read the Old Testament, not for religious reasons, but because they're learning about morals and right and wrong. I mean, God,
right?
shit wasn't good back then. Things
No,
weren't going well, right? It was not like, perfect and happy. Like, they're
it's really dark. That book
dark.
is pretty dark.
Being being a spiritual person in the
Right.
world has always been hard. It
Mm.
is super easy to be unspiritual and to just
Hmm.
make decisions solely in line with your self-interest
Right.
or the self-interest of your quote unquote group or people. But to be like, "Nah, let's love those people over there." That's hard. And that's, far from perfect at it, but that's what I believe is important to keep reiterating because it's just the truth.
Right.
Capital T.
Right. Right. I love that. Okay. Finally, what are some practices we can use, practical things we can do to re-regulate our nervous system
Yeah.
during this time or really any time that we're in a triggering or difficult moment?
Yeah. So the nervous system regulation stuff falls really into two camps, and all of it is super simple. If anyone tries to sell you some complicated method for regulating your nervous system, just ignore. Don't invest in it. So if you find yourself in an extremely agitated, dysregulated state,
Mhm.
you probably need something a little bit vigorous, like a workout. There are stress hormones in your body. That's why you feel that way, and
Hmm.
so, like, I do little boxing videos, like kickboxing videos, going for a
Love that.
jog, jumping rope, shaking, anything that's a little bit more vigorous to allow that stress cycle to
Mhm.
complete.
Oh,
Now,
and like you got to kind of
yes.
expend the rest of the energy. Yes.
Yes, expend the rest of the energy and you'll feel
Right.
much better after. It also has lots of other benefits. On the other side, just sort of low level anxiety or feeling more like in a freeze state where you're just
Mm.
like, you're kind of catatonic. Sometimes if you're feeling really distracted and just unable to focus, brain fog, breathing and nature and closing your screen down.
Yeah, it's
So
huge.
breathing deeply into your belly for at least 5 minutes is how you stimulate the sympathetic nervous system, right? So sympathetic is fight or flight, parasympathetic is rest and digest. You don't need to do anything crazy or complicated. Deep belly breaths, go out into nature, don't bring your phone, like go
Yeah.
for a walk. Hot baths are really good. And if you can have access to acupuncture,
Mm.
acupuncture is wonderful
Okay.
for nervous system regulation. But the one thing I will say is none of this matters if you are not aware of your own system. You have to really
Yeah.
understand and be so when you're dysregulated. I mean, there's a lot of
Mhm.
people walking around dysregulated as all get
Yeah.
out, but they don't even know and they're just moving from that place.
They do great on TV and podcasts, though.
Oh, and they run
They're
a
really
lot.
rich.
They run a lot of businesses. That's why I
They
have a
do.
job. A lot of CEOs and
Oh,
executives are
interesting. Yeah.
moving
Oh
like
my
this
gosh.
all the time. So, yeah, so really checking in with yourself and starting to develop your own toolkit. But like I said, it doesn't need to be fancy. But there is a somatic or body-based element to it pretty much all the time, whether it's like more
Hmm.
vigorous or more of that gentle, soothing kind of thing.
Do you have, like, an online resource where people can go to get specific breathing exercises, or is there something you can point us to on your page? Something like I'm looking for, like, a cheat sheet, give us, I don't know, a breathing exercise page that you visit,
Yeah.
something.
I have something that you can link in the show notes. I
Ooh,
have actually a
okay.
couple of documents about this. I wish if I was more opportunistic, I would create some packaged priced thing to do this. But honestly, I have a PDF that I share with my clients. I think it's like 56 ways to like work with your nervous system, and they're pretty much all free. They're
Oh, that's
all
awesome.
free because the truth of the matter is like we should be working with our nervous system the way that we like take care of our teeth. So like twice a day without exception, brushing, flossing,
Oh
right?
gosh.
Maybe a
Yeah.
third time if you eat something really stinky. That's like your nervous system. Like every
Right.
morning, every night, checking in, making sure it's cleansed and soothed. And if you have a real stinky moment in the middle of the day, you might need to, break out that floss and get
Right.
get your nervous system, underway. I record meditations for my clients that are like 3 minutes long, three
Oh,
minutes to
that's not
just
too bad. Yeah.
and obviously, if
Yeah.
you can do longer, great. But the point isn't to do the most. The point is
Right.
to do what you're actually going to do so that you can have a conversation like this and not be like, freaking
Yeah.
out.
I mean, not to brag, but I feel like we've got it figured out. Just
We,
kidding.
well, let me,
Follow us, not anyone else. No, I'm just kidding.
I had a
Yeah.
friend say to me the other day who's starting a business, Amanda, I wish I had met you 10 years ago when I was starting my company. I was like, honey, I was not me 10 years ago. You would not have wanted to meet me 10 years ago because I
Funny.
did not. The reason why I learned this stuff and why I'm good at this stuff now is because I was a dysregulated mess. I was
Yeah.
not, I was not naturally zen and chill and thoughtful.
Right.
I would just stress myself into illness.
Yeah.
I was never combative. I was more of like the self-abuser than the, other abuser. I didn't attack people or anything like that, but I would just get so stressed and so anxious and,
Right. Oh yeah. Like the kind of anxious where you can't breathe. I'm like,
yes.
like that's how I know that social media is just has
Yeah.
gotten to me. I'll just get this it's feeling
Yeah.
actually in the front of my throat. It's like all these
Yeah.
trapped words
Yes.
that like, it's this dichotomy of like who I show up as online, which admittedly is not the whole me because I don't believe in sharing everything. I
Yeah.
just don't. But and then the existing in real life where like I'm a full person with a set of
Uh-huh.
beliefs and then I come and it just traps all here sometimes and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I had to like completely just go away for a couple of days
Yeah.
and it felt amazing.
And
So
your nervous system was like, thank you, Sunny. Thank
it
you.
said it said go outside with your dog for the 5th walk today.
Oh my gosh, a dog is like the best, or a cat. I'm a dog person, but like animals for nervous system regulation, oh my God, they
I
lay on your
know.
chest and you're healed.
I know. He's so sweet. He's laying here on the floor right now, just
Yeah,
making sure I don't go crazy
of
in his little.
course.
Amanda, you have been such a pleasure to talk to. I've really enjoyed getting to know you. I mean, offline during this conversation too. For those who might be in the space of being able or interested in working with you, sort of on the business mentor level, can you tell us how to connect and where to reach
Yeah.
out?
For sure. So my website is just my name, amandabaudier.com. I do both one-on-one executive coaching for startup founders, and I'm also offering spiritual mentorship as a year-long kind of deeper relationship. In 2025, I'm also going to be launching something that's a bit more accessible,
Okay.
that kind of is in this like down to earth, grounded, reasonable spirituality that you can apply to your real life. So if you sign up for my newsletter, that'll be launching around March. I don't put too heavy of dates on myself these
I
days.
love that. No,
I
I
gotta,
love it.
yeah, but I'm feeling really called to support people who want to be on this like, how do I be a good person? It's so
Yeah.
freaking hard.
Yeah.
That's the question I want to answer. How do we do it? How do we just not be jackasses to each other all the time? Because it's gotten bad. It's just
Gotten
gotten
bad.
so mean. It's gotten so mean. It's gotten so bad. And it doesn't have to be that way.
No, I feel like this conversation was a great starting point
I
too. I
hope
mean,
so.
just, a reminder to everybody that you can
Yeah.
stand strong in your convictions. You
Yes.
could and should do good in the world, but you
Yes.
don't have to take the bait on every
Yeah.
single
Yeah.
conversation.
You
Yeah.
can be passionate without attacking other people. You
Yeah.
got to be very strong to do it that way. And you got to really stay in your center, but it is possible. So.
Yeah. Well, you give me hope. Amanda, thank you so very much. Thank you
Yeah,
for
so great
talking
to
with
talk
me
to you.
today.
Thank you so much for listening to this latest episode of We Gotta Talk. If you don't mind, I would love if you could leave a rating and review. Those help this show to get out to people who might find it useful or entertaining. I'm so grateful for your support. Please follow on Instagram at Sunny Abada or check out our latest blog post at wegottatalk.com/blog. See you next time.